Another thing I should mention is not all engine valves, intake valves, are pneumatic. In the 159 and some GTs and whatever, they are electric. But the message is it's the same. Do not eliminate the function for the engine shut off. Hi guys! Today we are talking about dual mass flywheels, what it is and how can we protect it. Typically, the flywheel does two things. It provides balance to the engine and also provides a surface from which the clutch to ride on. But nowadays, the flywheel gets one more function. It also provides a smoother takeoff when you pull up the clutch pedal. So, how can we diagnose a flywheel? There are three places where your flywheel can get too much play. So you have the inside plate and you have the outside piece, and these two pieces are joined together by a center ring, a center bearing, and this bearing cannot have any play, any at all. So you can check this play by putting your two fingers, for example, here and here, and then rock it up and down and check for play. Obviously, this is a new flywheel. It cannot have any play. This older flywheel, by the way, this flywheel has 16 years and 250,000 kilometers. And check it out. No play. Also, we have to place our fingers right here and here and check for movement up and down. I know you cannot see anything because it does not have any play. And this one also does not have any play. In fact, I can put my screwdriver right here and I can feel absolutely nothing. No play. Another thing that confuses a lot of you guys is sideways movement. The spring internals, there are internal springs to aid the absorption of motion. This new one has minimal play. And this one has a little bit of play. Mind you, it is not much. For 16 years and 250,000 kilometers, it's really not much. But also, there are other things you have to consider. This flywheel, for example, is starting to leak residues of rust. What this means is the internal parts are starting to wear a little bit. If I reuse this flywheel, it's gonna be okay, but sooner or later, this play, or this one, is gonna get worse. Excuse me. Other thing that you have to consider is this surface. This surface here is not too bad. You have one E-check right here, another small one right here, some fun I have right here. But if necessary, this flywheel here can be reused. This flywheel does not make any noise. It's perfect. For safety, not really safety, but for mind rest, obviously a new flywheel is much better. Not only that, if I had this flywheel for 16 years, this flywheel with the same maintenance, and yes, there is maintenance for the flywheel, can reach also 16 years. at least 10. So by then the car will be 30 years old. I think it's excellent. I see one mass flywheels less than that, less than 10 years, depending on your left foot. Another thing that I want to talk to you about is this surface plate. Obviously, this flywheel is not new. It won't last as much as this one. Yes, it can be reused. This flywheel does not make any noise at all. I can put a clutch kit in here and it won't make any noise. In fact, I already done that. 100,000 kilometers ago, I done that, exactly that. This flywheel, this play, is exactly the same as it was 100,000 kilometers ago. So I know for a fact this flywheel can handle another clutch kit. I will in fact repath the clutch and make a reserve clutch kit. I will use this new flywheel only because I don't want to mess with it for another 16 or more years. I have too many projects. I don't want to mess around with it a lot. Another thing, again, that you have to have in mind, as you have more and more play in this section here and up and down and on the springs, the more you're going to have heat checks. These heat checks will make your ride very uncomfortable when you are pulling away, but also premature wear down the clutch. And another thing, these flywheels have maintenance. Yes, you heard it. They have maintenance. Part of that maintenance is made with an engine part. I call it the flywheel protection device. So, let's see how it works. Here we can see what I call the flywheel protection device. This intake valve actually protects the flywheel. How does it do it? It's very simple to understand. So, imagine if you don't have this intake valve, when you shut off the engine, your crankshaft will shatter, okay, because of the compression of the engine. What actually happens is when you shut off your engine, immediately at the same time this valve shuts off very, very rapidly. This allows for the engine to shut off in a vacuum. This is important because the flywheel then can stop with very smoothness. In fact, you can feel if you disconnect the vacuum pipe and you shut off the engine without this working, you will hear a shatter in the gearbox area. The actual flywheel touches internally. And if you have this working, the shut off of the car is very smooth, very almost you cannot hear the engine being turned off. As I said, this actuator is pneumatic. In fact, I think I did not mention that, but it's okay. This actuator is pneumatic. It's operated by vacuum, and like any other vacuum system, you have your TGV turbo operated by vacuum as well. If you have a leak in one of these pipes, these tubes, you are also have a malfunction on this valve, this intake valve. As it's so, this valve cannot shut entirely when you are shutting off your engine, and you can
feel or not the engine making a noise when you turn it off. Another thing that I see very frequently is, as we know, these 16-valve engines, these diesel 16-valve engines, have this EGR here. This EGR cannot be completely eliminated simply by a false gasket. And what happens is you electronically reprogram it, okay? They also remove the ability for the engine valve, the intake valve, to close during shutoff. And why is that? This valve also has another job. When the AGR valve opens, this intake valve partially closes to increase EGR flow. So if you are eliminating the EGR, do not eliminate the function of the intake valve, at least for engine shutoff. Please, please, oh please, let this valve, this little valve, work. Please. It's very, very important for the flywheel. And you will feel the difference if you shut off one of the lines between a smooth shutoff and a rough shutoff. It's very, very, if you pay attention, it's easy to see the difference. Another thing I should mention is not all engine valves, intake valves, are pneumatic. In the 159 and some GTs and whatever, they are electric. But the message is it's the same. Do not eliminate the function for the engine shutoff.
So I removed this intake valve so you can better understand what was I saying. As you can imagine, if you shut down the engine without this function, the crankshaft will shutter and the flywheel will shutter as well. If you have the intake valve shut down like this, the engine will shut down in a vacuum. This means the crankshaft will not shutter and the flywheel will not shutter as well. It will turn off very slowly, very smoothly, and this play is minimized. So, how can we have certain that the flywheel can be reused? As you can see in my second video, that was a experimental video that I did. I said that flywheel play will damage your gearbox. That is entirely true. But also, you have to see it case by case. This flywheel here does not have any sideways play or axial play. Therefore, this flywheel in particularly will not damage a gearbox. Not yet, at least. So imagine that repair, that gearbox repair that I did, it was not a Fiat Group gearbox, but the system is the same. Imagine that I did not been able to identify the problem, the flywheel problem. I would rebuild the gearbox as I did and ignored the flywheel play or did not know how to diagnose it. A few months later, the customer says to me, "Man, the gearbox is the same. You did not did a good job." That did not happen, not yet at least. I know for a fact that the cause of the problem was the flywheel, and here's why. As you can imagine, the clutch disc rests here, and it's pressed down on the flywheel. So, as the flywheel has sideways play or up and down play, so as the flywheel has up and down play or sideways play, does have to the center of the disc. And this means, like if I can exaggerate it, like this. And this means the input shaft, the primary shaft, is connected obviously to the gearbox by a bearing. And as you can imagine, this bearing will suffer a lot because of this play. If the bearing suffers, so does the teeth on the gearing and other bearings. In that particular video, I can show you, and you can see it, the extreme bearing wear because of this play. This play was caused by problems with the flywheel. In that case, I could not let the customer keep that flywheel. I show him the video, and he said, "Okay, you can do whatever you want with the car. Please fix my car. I know the problem, as you show me, is the culprit was the flywheel. The consequence was a gearbox." But there's another problem. In here, we can split some tastes. This is a Valeo or Sachs flywheel in clutch kit, as this one is too. You can see it here. And also, you can see it right here and there, in various places. This is very, very, very important to know. You cannot ever switch brands. This means what? If from factory you have a Valeo or Sachs is the same, Sachs or Valeo, not Sachs. You cannot ever switch it to look. The look flywheels are very different in construction from the Valeo Sachs. And here's why. You cannot diagnose a flywheel, a look flywheel, the same way you diagnose a Sachs Valeo. The look flywheel will always have axial play, always, and always will have a lot of sideways play or spring play. It's normal for that type of construction. What does this mean? It means when the engine was built and the gearbox and whatever, it was built for this specific place, for this specific method of construction. If you switch brands, you can have a lot of vibrations, noises, you name it. These vibrations can be expected in driving when you are pushing the car very hard or at idle, for example, and then you can start to change engine mounts and whatever. And the problem was you switch brands. I cannot say I don't like look. I only have to say you don't want to switch brands. If you have a look flywheel, maintain a look flywheel. If you have a Sachs flywheel, maintain it. You cannot, in any brand, switch flywheels. Okay? I've seen very strange things when that happens in the BMWs, in Fiats, in Alfa Romeos, obviously. as you can imagine, I have some proof from what I'm saying. One of those is, imagine this is a Look flywheel. This is a Sachs flywheel. In one case, I had a Fiat Doblo, and we had to replace the flywheel and the clutch kit because it was an old man's truck, and he scorched the surface because he had some difficulties of driving. And we replaced it with a Look flywheel and disc and clutch and press. What happened next? It was the car never started. The engagement of the starter motor from this crown here was not perfect because of the balance of the flywheel. During the start, the balance was so bad that the starter could not maintain the connection between itself and the flywheel. We called our supplier, and he said the problem is the starter. We changed the starter because it was an alteration of the starter, and it did start. The engine started very badly. 15 days later, the owner said the car does not start. It makes a horrible noise. It's not good. Okay, we contact again our supplier, and he said, really, that was to be expected. We are making some experience with this mounting because that engine comes from the factory with a Valeo, Sachs Valeo flywheel, and the construction of the Look is very different because of the balance, like I said. Okay, so we switch again with the Sachs Valeo flywheel and clutch kit. We replaced the engine, the starter, and everything stayed okay. Another story was the opposite. It was a case of BMW, a 320D diesel. It uses a Look flywheel. It was replaced by a Sachs flywheel, Sachs Valeo, and the car started, okay, but it was impossible to drive. It was very rough, a lot of vibrations, and my colleague at the time thought, okay, maybe I damaged some engine mounts while I was doing the job. He switched the mounting, the engine mountings. It stays the same. And I told them, look, I know this happens when you switch from Sachs to Look. Maybe the opposite occurs with different symptoms. And he said, okay, I will try, but I don't think so. So he tried, and he switched it to Look, and it was perfect. So it's another story. There are a lot of stories, of course. The problem is when you don't know what came where from the factory. And obviously, there's a lot of confusion in the information on the internet or forums or whatever. But if you can ask the right people and ask your dealer and maybe ask the brand itself with a nice email, for example, they will tell you what is what. Because when they do the decision of putting a Valeo Sachs over a Look, it's for a reason. Normally it's because of the gearboxes, because of the balance of the gearboxes. But it's for a reason. In the same brand, in the same model, even on the same engine, depending on the gearbox, you can have both, one or another, of course. So don't ignore that, please. You should not switch brands in any case, in any brand. Okay. Another thing that I want to mention It's the importance of prevention. I mean, we already talked about the importance of this valve, and also I think there are two things while we are driving the car. They are very important to maintain a good condition on the flywheel. One of those is while you are driving the car, you cannot, absolutely not, rest your foot, your left foot on the clutch pedal. That is very important, obviously, because of the wear. Sorry about the noise. Very important about the wear of the disc itself. It's important because of the wear of the throw bearing, and it is also important about the surface of these two pieces, the press and the flywheel. More than that, when you are driving the car like that, you are hitting the surface because the clutch is slipping, and also you are changing the balance of the flywheel. So you have more wear on the flywheel. The other thing is a little bit more technical, and it goes like this. In my experience, in my car, this flywheel is from my car. In 16 years, I always do that, and it appears to work. I never shut down the engine with my foot on a clutch. Never. And I think that is important because one simple thing. I see a lot of people, a lot of guys switching off the engine with the pedal on the clutch and one gear in place, first gear or reverse. It has as they are switching off the engine, they are taking off the foot of the pedal. What happens next is you are switching off the engine. The engine is still rotating, but you are disengaging the clutch, and the flywheel is stays forced, and when engaged with the gear, so it forces to one of the sides. Okay. As you can imagine, these springs here, they go much further if you have the strength for it. And you can imagine these springs being loaded days after days or hours, whatever the time the car is stopped. But imagine it's from one day to another. And proof of that is if you switch off the car like that. If you wanna press the clutch pedal, the car moves. Because it was forcing so much on the wheels that when you push down the clutch pedal, the car actually moves because it no longer has to stay forced on the flywheel. I mean, you press down the clutch through the pumps pushes up this type of clutch. This type is push, not pull. And then the clutch kit, the clutch disc, disengages and frees itself. Okay? And also, the flywheel frees itself. I understand why you need, or you think you need to switch off the car with the foot on the clutch pedal, because you think it's a more smooth stop for the engine. But you are right, okay? But this piece here does it for you. The function of this piece is to smooth down the shut-off of the engine. Okay? So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit longer, and I have some difficulties to talk in English yet. The theme itself, it's complicated to explain and to make myself be clear. But if you have any questions, anything at all you want to say to me, please leave in the comments below, and I will answer you. Bye.